How long does it actually take to flip a property? So if you're thinking of buying a property, refurbishing it, selling it on for a big profit, how long does it actually take? How long is the money invested going to be tied up? Now, it depends on the project you do. Refurbishments can vary massively in their duration. You could do a refurbishment on a project that you're flipping and it might take you 4 weeks. You can do one that might take you 6 months or more. It really depends what you're doing. Now, for the most part, what I like to do is doing projects that typically, refurbishment wise, don't take more than a couple of months. Most of them take around 6 weeks, depending what there is to do, but around about a couple of months. So the works are finished in that time, but you won't actually get paid for a little while after, because even if you did finish the project in a couple of months, having bought it, you're a couple of months in, there or thereabouts, you're still going to potentially have to wait to get that buyer able, or for that buyer to be able to actually complete on the purchase of your property, because a lot of mortgage lenders just don't like the fact that you as the seller won't have owned that property for 6 months. They'll often have to wait for that period of time. So it might sound silly, but that's just the way it is. So in most cases anyway, you might find lenders that will insist on the buyer having to wait. Even if they don't, I mean, it's a bonus if they don't, but in most cases they probably will. So you have to factor in 6 months from start to finish. So from the moment you get the keys in your hand on purchase, from the moment you sell the property and get cash in the bank on sale, you're looking at around about 6 months minimum because of that. Even if you can find a buyer quicker or do the refurb quicker and find a buyer, you're still probably waiting 6 months. So you have to factor that into your numbers. It's around about 6 months, there or thereabouts. Now, I like to do deals where I'm finishing the refurbishment fairly quickly within a couple of months, because it generally maximizes that return on investment. If you're doing deals that take a lot longer than that, maybe you're planning on doing major building works, extensions, etc., then you have to factor in the time and the cost of that time, the cost of the time relative to what else you could be doing with that money that's invested. So whenever a project goes on longer than expected, or whenever a project takes longer than another project you could do, you just have to factor in, how does that time impact your return on investment? Quite simply, is it worth it? Is it worth doing a longer term project? In many cases, it's just not. Don't get me wrong, I've done longer term projects before. I did a project not too long ago where I did 3 extensions to the property. It made sense for that property and the profit was still worth it to do it. But in most cases, my deals, the refurbs are taking less than a couple of months. So I'm in that deal, out the deal, onto the next one, and maximizing return investment. So to break it down, quite simply, if you did a deal that took a year to do and you've put, say, 300 grand in, all in for your total costs, if you were to get 60k back profit, that's a 20% return on investment from all the cash invested. That's 20% return on investment in that year. That's fine. That's better than what you'll get in the bank. Certainly if you're funding that deal with bridging finance or private finance, it's still enough of a profit to make that worthwhile in most cases. But if you could do that deal in 6 months and then reinvest the money that you did on deal 1 into a second deal 6 months later, then technically you've doubled your return on investment. That's why you have to factor in the time it takes to do a deal. And you need to do deals where ideally you're in and out in around about 6 months as a target. Might be a little bit more in some cases, but if it's there or thereabouts and you're hitting that target, you're maximizing your return on investment. If you found a deal where it would take longer because an extension was needed, you've just got to make sure it's worthwhile. And you factor that in and say, well, if I'm tying the money up for longer, is that going to be worthwhile relative to doing another deal or potentially 2 deals in the time that I could do this longer term project? And you're always factoring that in to make sure your money is working hard enough for you or for your investors, and ultimately you're maximizing your time. So hopefully that's useful. If it is, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and you'll see me again in the next one very soon.